Okay, guys, so 201, we are back in coronavirus land where I'm teaching in my backyard with a selfie stick, which is crazy. But we have returned, and so, all right. So, what we're doing today is we're continuing to go through Iago and his passages and his sections of Othello. Um, okay, so obviously your papers, your paper two, which is about Othello, and paper three, which is about the Tempest. I'll be getting to you relatively soon, so that you can do those assignments. Um, I'm also going to, and there's some information on the website about the recalibration period, so you can find some information about that here. This doesn't really affect you very much in my class, and probably not in your other classes either. And then the other thing is there's going to be a chance to do your classes for a grade, for no grade, for you're gonna, credit, no credit, pass fail, so that instead of having a grade at the end of the course, it would just say pass. So that if you get a D plus, it says pass. If you get an A, it says pass. And you'll be able to decide that later. No rush on that. You can actually wait, I think, like 20 days until the end of the semester to do that. But that's probably what you're going to want to do because this semester's been so chaotic. I imagine many of you are probably not doing your best work. And everyone will remember the coronavirus time when we all stayed indoors, so you will have no questions about your transcript moving forward. Everyone will just know that was the crazy coronavirus situation. All right, so let's get back to Iago. So we're now on page 10 of Othello, and what I want to look at today is this is the part of the movie where Iago is like, remember when Othello is at like that fancy party upstairs dancing with Desdemona, celebrating because war is over. Right, the whole reason that Othello goes to Cyprus is because he is supposed to be, helping fight the Turkish fleet, and they all just unceremoniously drown. They're basically a storm, and all the bad guy ships sink. And so Othello, there's no war to fight, and he has no reason to be there, and so he just has fun. And of course, it's not fun; it goes dreadful. But the point here is that Othello was well equipped to handle the Turkish fleet. He would have probably done a great job battling out with them. He would have won that war. But the Turkish fleet just sank in bad weather, and so he has nothing to do but hang out. And domestic life, home life, non-war life is something Othello is actually not that good at. He's ill prepared for the complications. He likes an enemy that he could see is obviously trying to kill him because he's wearing the uniform of all the guys that are trying to kill him, and he also has a uniform to let them know he's trying to kill them. What Iago does is something else, because Iago is a friend, apparently, and Othello's not really ready to deal with that kind of enemy. The kind of enemies he usually has in his life announce themselves with cannon fire and flags, and he doesn't have that anymore. So with that in mind, let's go back. This is a scene where Othello's at the big party upstairs, and remember Iago. Remember one of the reasons I mentioned last time the word villain comes. The VILL in villain is the same VILL in village. And then one of the things happening in Othello is it's a kind of class war. Iago is a ordinary, everyday person. And Cassio, who got the job he wanted, is like a fancy rich kid who went to a fancy school. Iago has all the experience, and Cassio has all the book learning, and Cassio got the job, and Iago didn't. So if you remember the scene, Othello is up at a fancy party, and Iago's down below with the regular poor people. They're like fucking outdoors. Remember, he's like underneath a cart, and people are having sex in the cart, and he's down below messing with Rodrigo, because that's what Iago does for fun. So let's take a look at this. Oh, no, wait, I have other things to say. Um, in terms of metaphor, um, there are some. There's a complicated thing here that's happening. So remember that Othello originally takes place there they're in Venice, Italy, and then for the very first scene of the play, right? Othello gets married, and Iago finds him, and they go and have the conversation with the generals and all of this stuff. Um, one of the things you're going to be doing in this class is doing a little bit of research. So I want to just really quick show you an example of the kind of thing you can get done with research. So Othello travels from Venice, Italy, to a little island called Cyprus, and that was where he was supposed to fight the Turks. Most of the movie it takes place in Cyprus. Um, it's only the very beginning. We're talking to the senators and when Desdemona's like, "Oh, let me go with him," and when he gets married, that's Venice, Italy. But the rest of the movie takes place in Cyprus, which is a little island. Now, Cyprus is very famous for one thing, and well, I guess they're probably famous for more than one thing. I feel like they also make pretty good olive oil. But Cyprus is very, very famous for one particular thing, and if you look up Cyprus, you will discover this in mythology. Cyprus is the birthplace of Aphrodite. Aphrodite has another name, Venus. Um, so for the Greeks, she was known as Aphrodite, and for the Romans, she was known as Venus, but it's the same goddess. Aphrodite slash Venus is the goddess of love. Aphrodite, or Venus's child, is named either Eros or Cupid. You probably know him as Cupid. The point of this is, in terms of metaphor, though, right? So you do a little research and you find out where he goes, and you find out a little bit about this. And I'm sure you can see the stirrings of a complicated and interesting metaphor here, which is that all of Othello's problems are problems in love. The problems having to do with faithfulness, with romance, with love. So it's interesting that the entire play, which really is a tragedy of a man who cannot trust his wife. All he has to do is have faith in his wife, and he'd be fine. Nobody would be dead. But he can't. He can't do it, and Iago really twists him into jealousy. But it's fundamentally a romantic idea. It's romantic problems. He can handle war problems. He's great on the battlefield. Remember, Mars, or Ares, is the Greek slash Roman god of war. Othello's great with that. But Venus and Aphrodite, goddess of love, whose child is Eros or Cupid, he's on love's terrain now in Cyprus. And so it's interesting that all of his problems and all the things that lead to his fundamental downfall have to do with that. So it's a metaphor, right? It's a whole metaphor for all of his problems. By the way, fun fact, Venus is the, and by the way, and some of you guys may not have a mental image of Venus, and I'll put a picture up on the blog, but there's a very famous painting from the Renaissance by a guy named Botticelli of Venus being born, and it's you guys are probably like, I never heard of that before, but if I show you this picture, you will recognize it. It is one of the most famous paintings in the world, like after the Mona Lisa. This is the painting everybody knows. It's like a naked goddess coming out of like a seashell, and she's covering her breasts like this, and she's covering her private parts like this, and then there's like winds blowing over here, and there's all this stuff. So it's a very famous image. Fun fact about Venus, by the way, you guys know I like word histories because I'm a huge nerd. The VEN in Venus is the same VEN in venereal disease. Another name for venereal disease is the sexually transmitted diseases, are the venereal diseases. The VEN in Venus is the same VEN in venereal diseases like syphilis, like gonorrhea, like HIV. Venereal diseases, the VEN is the same VEN in Venus. The venereal diseases are the diseases of the goddess of love. And so people don't think about it, right? But in the medical profession, when you say venereal diseases, you're actually making reference to ancient Greek gods. Venus is the goddess of love, and venereal diseases are her diseases. They're love diseases, essentially. Okay, so anyway, there's a metaphor in there and a little bit of research, but that's the kind of thing you can find out about that kind of expands the story. You always want to keep an eye out for these kinds of metaphors. Notice, by the way, this is a metaphor. Sometimes the metaphors that show up in these plays are metaphors that Iago uses, or a metaphor that Othello uses, and you can say, why does? Like, for example, Iago uses racist metaphors, right? He compares Othello to a donkey. What do they have in common? He thinks they're stupid. He compares Othello to a black ram having sex with a white sheep. Why? Because he's drawing attention to race, because he thinks black people are like animals, or he's playing on that stereotype. So some of the metaphors you see are often, when you talk about metaphors, sometimes the metaphors you're talking about are used by Iago, they're used by Othello. But the Cyprus thing, the Venus thing, it's not like Iago went to Cyprus because he was thinking about love. He was sent there for military reasons. So he didn't choose it. Nobody chose it. It happened to them. The whole Aphrodite, Venus, goddess of love, Cyprus is her birthplace kind of thing, that is a metaphor that is not used by Othello. It's not used by Iago. It's used by Shakespeare. And when Othello and Iago use a metaphor, they're using it to mess with other characters. So when Iago tells Desdemona's dad that, an old black ram is tupping your white ewe, he's comparing Othello to a beast who's defiling his daughter. But the Cyprus metaphor in Aphrodite is a metaphor that is from Shakespeare to you sitting in your chair in a theater watching this thing. And so it's important when always in your papers, always tell me, why did the author write it this way, and what does the audience get out of it? You got to talk about the author-audience relationship in all things. Because if I say to you, why did they go to Cyprus? You're going to go, well, the generals sent them there. That's where the Turks were. But that's not the question. The question is, why did Shakespeare choose Cyprus, and it's because of the associations with the goddess of love. So always remember that author audience thing. Okay, see you in the next video.